let's talk about BYU. Like this team is a little bit sometimes difficult for me to figure out because sometimes I'm looking at them. I'm like, they started off really strong, and I said to myself, "Oh, okay, BYU is a team to kind of keep an eye on." And then but the record is not bad, and this is not bad for a first year in the Big 12. But then I look at the stats and I look at where the offense ranks and look at where the defense ranks, and then I get really more confused. So give me your take as to where BYU is heading into this Texas game.
Well, what's funny is BYU fans are used to a good offensive club. This year, BYU is winning with defense and special teams. I mean, they're one in the top 5 in turnovers with 16 that they've caused. Special teams has been part of that. Defensively, they've been able to get some good fourth down stops and give the offense some short fields to work with. But offensively, they've been really kind of erratic. And they've had a couple of guys who were expected to contribute that have been hurt that are just now getting back. So it's kind of an unusual year for BYU to be in that position. They've been the 3 wins that they've had against P5 opponents, Arkansas, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati. They were outgained in all 3 of those games by 200 yards at Arkansas and by 100 yards last week against Texas Tech. So how were they able to sustain this? We're not quite sure. And so if opponents are kind of trying to figure out BYU, so are those of us who cover the team on a regular basis, because it's kind of unusual and they just haven't been able to put together much offense, at least consistently.
Why is that? Is it as simplistic as quarterback play? Because I mean they do have the 14th ranked offense in the Big 12, which is technically the worst from a statistical standpoint. Is it all on the QB, or there's some other various factors that go into this?
I think there's a lot of those. Obviously they're stepping up in competition. They're playing 10 straight Power 5 opponents this year. They've never done that in school history. They brought in 60 new players this summer, as far as, going to the transfer portal, recruits, return missionaries, which is a part of the thing here. And so that made a difference. They brought in a new defensive coordinator where they're learning a new defense. So there's a lot of newness to this team. And I feel like a lot of those factors have played into it. Keaton Slovis is the quarterback. He had some success at USC, struggled in his year at Pitt. He's been kind of up and down this year. What's interesting about this team, I think, is they lost quarterback 1 to the NFL. They lost running back 1 to the NFL. That's Christopher Brooks, who's with the Dolphins. And then a guy named Puka Nacua, who's tearing up the league for the Rams this year at wide receiver. So they lost a lot of talent on the offensive side from last year, and that's part of the process as well.
What was the difference from TCU to Texas Tech? I mean, TCU, that's 44-11, and then they rebound the next week and beat Tech. What was the difference in between those 2 teams?
Well, part of the difference is the Big 12 is just kind of crazy. I mean, you saw what happened to TCU against Kansas State. They got slaughtered. BYU was not well prepared, I don't think, for that game against TCU. They seemed to not really know what they wanted to do defensively. They fell behind quickly and couldn't come back. Started pressing. It was a week where they really had to take a look inside themselves, and they got a chance to play at home where they've been pretty good, and at night, where crazily enough, their last 21 games they're 20-1 at night, which there must be vampires or something. But they're playing in the afternoon against Texas.
Yeah. This is not the first time that BYU would have faced a backup quarterback this season, right? I mean, I feel like this has happened before. Tell me about that what happened previously when they faced a backup, and your thoughts on what Texas may look like preliminarily. Even if you haven't had a chance to get too deep into the weeds as far as analysis, without a Quinn Ewers. Talk about BYU versus a backup quarterback like a Malik Murphy.
Yeah, when they played against TCU, they played against a backup quarterback, and a dude who hit him for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. So they were not good against TCU. They were better last week against Texas Tech, against their backup, picked him off 3 times, caused 5 turnovers overall, and that made a big difference. So somewhere in between there is what's going to happen on Saturday. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we know enough about Malik Murphy to know. I know from reading up on him that he had a great spring game, and fans were pretty excited about the future for him. Futures now, at least for the next couple of weeks, depending on what happens with Quinn Ewers. And certainly people around here know the name Manning if Arch
Yeah.
Manning happens to get into the game. So it's kind of a mixed bag what BYU has done against backup quarterbacks. And I think your running game is going to be a big factor. If Texas can run the ball well, that'll certainly take a lot of pressure off Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, Texas has Jonathan Brooks, so I believe he's number 7 in the country as far as rushing is concerned. They also have a freshman 5-star by the name of CJ Baxter. How has BYU fared against the run from your vantage point this season?
Okay. I mean, they did a good job last week against Texas Tech's big runner. He had only averaged 3.5 yards a carry when he's been averaging 6. So they gave him the ball 31 times. So Texas Tech was trying to establish that. I think BYU did all right against the run. What's been the biggest problem as far as run game is concerned is BYU's own run game. Last week they had 150 yards. They're trending right now to have the worst rushing yardage total in like 50 years in Provo. So it's something that they've been working really hard on. They're getting Aiden Robbins back and healthy. He was a 1,000-yard rusher at UNLV last year, and he's been hurt most of the year, but he got back last week and showed some flashes. So they're hoping their run game will do well. I don't know that they can really slow down Texas's run game very much. Their best tackler, Ben Bywater's out for the season. Missed the start. He got injured, so he's going to have some off-season surgery. So they miss him. Their defensive line was retooled, and they're better than they were last year, but still have some issues. So I think that's going to be a key factor in the game. I don't know that they can really step up and stop Texas's rushing attack.
Obviously Darnell Dixon, obviously from the Provo Daily Herald. Darnell, how's Steve Sarkisian viewed out there at BYU? Like, what's the advantage point of him? Because there's, we know about the connections. Obviously, this is not the first time that Steve Sarkisian has faced a BYU team in his career. What's the is there a lot of love from the fan base for a guy like Sark? Because he also talks him up, but I'm just kind of curious, what do people say about him?
People love him out here. Anybody who's a BYU fan knows what BYU did in 1996 when he was the quarterback, took him to a Cotton Bowl victory. And I think he's also endeared himself to BYU fans because he's had some personal demons that he's had to overcome in his lifetime. And I think BYU fans have empathized with his quest a little bit, but he certainly is a favorite son around here. I think he's thought of very favorably for his time. He was a JC transfer, came in his first year. I remember the last game of his junior season, he went against Fresno State and was like 28 out of 30 passing the ball or something. And then they had a terrific senior year. BYU fans remember Sark very, very favorably.
A few more before I let you get out of here. With BYU sitting here at 5-2, first season, obviously in the Big 12, there's still more games to be played. Is this a success, for them as far as entering the conference is concerned? Would this be so far considered to be a box that's been checked?
Yeah, even the most optimistic BYU fan would probably say, hey, 5 wins at this point in the season is fantastic. They get to 6, they're bowl eligible. And that was a reasonable goal for this program, I think, going into the Big 12, was to get bowl eligible. Now they've got, 5 games to win, 1 to get to that bowl eligibility. So I think most people would consider this a success. The way they've done it, as we mentioned and we talked about before, has been a little unusual. And so BYU fans like to grumble a little bit about the offense and things like that. But I feel like most BYU fans would be pretty happy right now at 5-2, considering, and of course, right now we know they've had one of the easiest schedules in the country coming in. Now they've got like the 4th hardest schedule going down the stretch. So it's going to be difficult.
Complete the sentence for me, or at least the thought process. If BYU was to beat Texas on Saturday, what would have occurred?
Well, BYU would have caused some turnovers. I think going into the game with a backup quarterback gives BYU fans and the defense a little hope that they can cause some confusion there. That BYU was able to run the ball at least a little bit to take the pressure off of Keaton Slovis. And they've got a few playmakers at receiver. So I'm thinking they can hit a few big plays, which is what they've done this year. They've been able to hit some big plays, but not sustain drives. So I would think if they can hit some big plays, run the ball all right, and cause some turnovers, that's what would have taken place for them to beat Texas.
Are you coming to Austin this weekend?
No, I'm not. Our beat writer, I'm the columnist. The beat writer is going to cover going to Texas. I've been to Austin with when Taysom Hill leaped over that defensive back. And
Dylan Haynes still remembers that leap as does everybody there. So what places are you telling the beat writer to go? Like, are you saying, hey, listen, last time I was in Austin, this place was amazing, and this is where you need to go? What guidance are you giving your beat guy?
Well, I stood next to Bevo, so I don't think that's the place where you want to be on the field as I went down.
Yeah.
You can close your eyes and point and find a great barbecue joint in Austin. We found one. I can't remember what it was. This is, almost 10 years ago, but I think definitely hit it up for some barbecue out there is the best way to go. And maybe you can give some suggestions I could pass on to him.
Yeah, I'll text it to you, and I'll give you some good things. Is he coming out on a Friday or Saturday?
He's coming out Friday night, so he'll be there for Saturday morning.
Okay, so he'll need breakfast suggestions more so than anything else.
True.
Yes. All right. Well, I've got you covered, Darnell. I appreciate it. Tell everybody they want to check out some of your columns. Tell them how they can find you if they want to go ahead and follow you this week.
Yeah, everything's at heraldextra.com. I do a column I call Inside Darnell's Head, which is kind of my musings and feelings and responses to what happens on Saturday. It's kind of fun. So look it up.
All right. Sounds good. Darnell Dixon, I absolutely appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully it wasn't as bad as the Taylor Swift intro was that it appeared to be. And good luck on seeing Huey Lewis in the news at some point. But Darnell Dixon from the Provo Daily Herald, we will see you soon.